Our protocols do not mention a particular temperature.
Protocols have
They just say chilled.
It just says chilled saline. But we have a refrigerator, and the way we're operating it so far is if we have a cardiac arrest, units call back for a second truck to take the saline directly out of the refrigerator and transport it to the scene. And then if we get a reversal, we would start infusing the saline. 40 to 41 degrees, any change in the shelf life, anything of saline, so normal expiration dates.
So we have to be careful, so we're talking Fahrenheit.
Yes.
Thermometer is both.
You don't want to warm them up. So yeah, no ice, hold the ice. But I think as long as it's not, it's not frozen, it's bringing it down. I mean, the target body temperature is around 36, right?
91.
Celsius.
36 Celsius. All right. Any motion to go metric now? All right. Any other business? All right, Phil. We have
a very brief executive session, which we will, it's agreeable to the REMAC members. We'll move outside for that.
Not going to the bar today?
We'll probably go to the bar, yeah. And we'll be back in. What would a REMAC meeting be without an executive session?
You look sharp dressed up. You look really sharp.
Andy Stearns is high.
Drink my coffee.
So the least all now.
Is he still working? Did he retire? He's retired. We're not going
It's a really nice unit. Like I said, they took the best.
Gus, I showed the REMAC session.
Zoom session. So now we can close.
Do you have anything else before the group?
All right. Anything else for the REMAC?
The intranasal Narcan program. Does the REMAC have any comments on the intranasal Narcan program?
I do. The medications have been sitting in my office for a month and nobody's come to pick them up.
My bad.
This is just a friendly reminder on your way past. Stop in and I'll buy you a cup of coffee.
I will take care of that today. I have received in the office all the training supplies for the intranasal Narcan program, several boxes full, and for the entire region, and then some. And I will pick up the Narcan today on the way back north. I do not know.
Joyce, you're going to remind them? Elbow them as he's driving?
No, everything is in the office.
We've agreed that, we don't remind each other of anything anymore. If he puts it in his right-hand pocket, he'll do it. But he'll probably notice when he gets back to Speculator that it's there.
Something in my right-hand pocket, right. I will take care of that. I haven't heard from Dr. Daly or from Remo when the program is supposed to kick off, when the training aspect of it is. So we'll hold everything in secure storage, as we say, until such time. That's all I have. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I have one piece of new business that hasn't gone anywhere. of late, but had a conversation with Dr. Daly as we were discussing the collaborative, they're called the collaborative protocols, the ones we share with Remo and Mountain Lake. And we had some feedback that we provided. He was interested in getting together with the other two regions, Mountain Lakes and ourselves, to discuss the idea of unifying the REMAC, having one giant, oversized, difficult to manage REMAC. So I said, well, you know, for the purposes of protocol, we're kind of doing that already. We participated in Todd as our main rep to the remote protocol writing process. So, you know, it's something I haven't given any thought to. You guys just heard for the first time, but they're kind of interested in doing that. So
my only concern with that is losing our own identity. Remo's, for instance, their turnaround documents are significantly different than ours.
I actually just want to ask one question first. Was he representing Remo, or Remo's REMAC, or himself on this?
Or no.
I've heard nothing from Remo's side about
Because I haven't missed a meeting at Remo, and I haven't heard the topic come up.
Okay.
Yeah, and Mike did mention it to me too, and I get the impression that maybe it's just a thought in his head that maybe this is a position we should take in the future.
I think it's
I don't
probably
even know
got
if
some
he's
merit,
talked to
although it's going to be
anybody else.
difficult to handle, because if we wait for state budgets to come around and they force it, if we have already done stuff to work together, then at least we can pick our bedfellows.
Yeah. Who's running this?
Me.
You're running this.
You're right. The floor recognizes Mr. D.
I would think you'd keep the local group, and then for larger issues, you might send a delegate up to Remo, where somebody from Mountain Lakes could get in there and talk about larger issues and bring it back here.
My sense was that
Sort of
Mountain
turn
Lakes-
the idea around.
that we were actually closer to Remo in even concept than Mountain Lakes would be.
I get that impression. It's only an impression, but I get that impression just from the communication flow.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know, we're here to serve, and unless somebody has a good rationale for doing it, like budget, if budget forced it, you know, if we were forced to do something consolidated, that would be a whole different discussion.
Back in, for what it's worth, back in January, when we didn't know where the legislative proposals were going, I had discussions with the E.M.S. Bureau director, Lee, and she said that there was no plan to separate Remo, AAREMS, and Mountain Lake by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, we were talking about the ill-advised thing about having six boards, advisory boards. We were going to be one of them, as far as the DOH was concerned.
We would be one of them.
Interestingly enough. Now, all of that happily got stuck in them.
For now.
For now, yeah.
For now, we really don't know.
At the moment, there's nothing going on, but there may be.
All right. Any other business for Remo?
Yes.
I have one item.
Okay, go Mark.
In 2002, I should back up a little bit. We were in a random Medicare audit recently, and they kicked out a few of our paramedic intercepts, saying that because we had critical cares doing some of these, that they were not paramedics, and therefore we were not going to get reimbursed. I think this has been settled with Medicare, so I'm not sure where they're coming from. However, I thought we had settled this in 2002 with a letter that we had written requesting that the REMAC put something in writing about this. Maybe I should just read the letter. This was to Dr. Fisher, October of 2002. Cooperstown Medical Transport is being asked to do paramedic ALS intercepts to the volunteer community with greater frequency than in past years. We are using both critical care technicians and paramedics to accomplish this purpose. We have been obtaining paramedic ALS intercept agreements as required by Medicare under the legislation, which allows us as a rural provider to bill Medicare for these intercepts. New York State is different from most other states because we have the critical care level, which is not recognized on a national level. In consulting with Medicare, they have advised us that they will pay for critical care technicians to do paramedic ALS intercepts if the REMAC provides approval to ALS services for the specific level of ALS care they're allowed to provide. In our region, there are many ALS intercepts being provided by critical care technicians and specialty care transports being done by critical care technicians. We're asking the REMAC to make a determination on the record that both AMTP and AMTCCs are ALS levels of care which are approved to operate for the purpose of paramedic ALS intercept and specialty care transports. And if it's done on a regional basis, then Medicare will accept it. I would just ask if REMAC would consider reiterating that in writing somewhere so that not only our service, but other services that are doing paramedic intercepts that might get caught in this Medicare audit would have something to defend themselves with.
So at the federal level, which is Medicare, they use the term paramedic.
That's right.
And the regulation they previously said for New York, they recognize CC to provide that.
They would, yes. They've indicated that, but it has to be approved on a regional basis.
I think we can't tell them in Medicare what they're going to pay for. They're going to look for rates, not for that. So if they find a loophole that they cannot pay for it, they will probably use it. But I think what we could say, that last sentence in that letter was, it says that AMTP and AMTCC are ALS levels of care which are approved to operate in our region.
I had asked
For
Phil.
ALS, and I think if we strike the paramedic out of it, that gets into, you can't say that a critical care can provide paramedic ALS. It's a very specific level of care. And Medicare is looking for that very specific language. I think what we can say is that paramedics and CCs are ALS levels of care which are approved to operate in our region for ALS intercept and specialty care transport. That would sort of cover a lot of it.
Well, that would be fine. I mean, whatever you would be comfortable with. But I had asked Phil to go back through the minutes and see if there was something that was done about this, and we thought there was, and we couldn't find it.
Couldn't find it in 2002 and 2003. I didn't go any either side of that. We did what Mark was on the phone about the other.
All right. You guys are okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, so let me just rephrase that.
Okay, if Mark will just give me a copy of that letter, I'll
So I think the statement, it would say, both AEMTP and AMTCC are ALS levels of care approved to operate in our region for the purposes of ALS intercept and specialty care transport. They're not the same, but they both provide ALS.
Right.
Is there anything else, anybody else have any comment about that? Everybody comfortable with that statement?
The only thing about specialty care, that's usually with advanced training, so you're kind of opening that up to any CC can just be a specialty care.
Well, let's clarify it then. Within the scope of their training and
Protocol,
Yeah, it's in the protocols. Yep.
so say within the scope of their respective curriculum, training, and protocols, and regional plans.
We say in the protocols, critical care technicians and paramedics that have attended regionally approved supplemental training focused on specialty care transports and have been credentialed by the agency's medical director may transport a patient between hospitals.
So
I think you're going to run into that same issue though when it comes to billing, because under the Medicare regulations, it's above and beyond, it defines above and beyond the scope of practice of a paramedic. Not anywhere in there does it say.
This has been settled previously by Medicare. I don't know why they're having a problem with it. So I wanted to, and the other people in the commercial community that I've spoken to have had similar audits and have simply demonstrated by attaching protocols, appropriate protocols, and have kind of won on appeal. So.
Oh, okay, we went through the same thing last year and had to kick back $1,500 because they determined that a multi-trauma going from one ER to the trauma center is an emergency call.
Oh, yeah, we've had some of those too.
You know,
Yeah.
so we had to pay back $1,500 for
We got
3
people
or 4 of
doing-
those silly things.
Doing ALS things and giving patients morphine and stuff, and they're saying it's an emergency or it's a BLS call.
Some of the change also coming with it is the recent change of the scope of practice, when they reclassified the positions nationally, and New York just hasn't really adopted that, because we have the CCs.
That's right.
So that's why you're probably seeing it now, where you didn't see it 2-3 years ago.
Right.
I don't know how that's gonna drive things, but.
Right. But on the other hand, you all know that New York is the only state that allows this paramedic intercept. This was
Right.
achieved about 15, 20 years ago. Thank you.
You got it, Bill?
I got it, yeah, if you'll give me a copy of that, when we close the business, I'll make sure I get the exact wording.
I've got the exact wording right here.
You got it? Oh,
Yep.
Okay.
Joyce, just
One more time.
Delay that request.
Both paramedic and critical care levels both paramedic and critical care are ALS levels of care approved to operate in our region for the purpose of ALS intercept and specialty care transport within the scope of their respective training and regional protocols.
curriculum training and.
Curriculum, training, and
Nevertheless, you got it better than I did, so that's good.
Concerned about the word curriculum as we move to the national standards.
there is no curriculum. That's
There is no
right.
curriculum, so
That's
you
right.
might want to switch.
Curriculum is gone.
Yeah, I was going to speak about that later.
You're right. So
Okay.
it would be transport within the scope of their respective training and regional protocols.
Would people be relative to specialty care transport? Because there are certain kinds of things, like, you know, they were looking for blood and things like that to be transfused. Would it be more specific to say selected specialty care transports? In other words, not across the board, doesn't matter. Okay. Nobody has a problem.
As vague as possible.
Leave it as vague as possible. with
Right.
documents.
Yeah, I think vague is good.
Regional protocols.
That's sufficiently vague? Can we vagueize it?
Thank you.
Any other business for the?
Gus, I have something, you had asked 2 months ago for feedback on the protocols overall, and I had 2 very good responses. In the protocols, it says a controlled administration set or pump must be used for all drip medications. And they provide a wonderful little chart in their protocols that puts it in drops per minute. The problem is that all of the administration sets are in cc's per hour. And there are many, many advanced techs who are having a problem getting from this chart to this device. There's problems with this device. We went on a high and wide search to get one that has a range with very small increments, and most of the ones that are being handed out don't have that. If we take that, and I took one of my CICs, took the chart and translated everything to cc's per hour, there's 2 medications that you cannot give through a dial-a-flow because amiodarone, you would need a dial-a-flow that would deliver 600 an hour. The one that we found that has the most extensive range only goes up to 250. And magnesium would require a dial-a-flow of 300 an hour. So we can't follow our protocols as they're outlined in here because you can't, there's no equipment to do it.
So it's like a gravitational control.
If you look at those charts, although there is, I guess the contraindication is, it says all medications need to be on a dial-a-flow. If you look at the charts, magnesium and amiodarone don't have it required on the chart for a dial-a-flow. You look at all the other ones, it says must be on a dial-a-flow. Those 2 don't have it.
Okay, but but just even talking with Jack just now, said from there to here, there's a huge disconnect. And we've charted, you know, I'll give this to you, but even the ranges that taking our equipment and putting it into the micrograms per cc and stuff, there's some pretty broad ranges, and it's really I don't think it's working as well.
So the device you're pointing to there, that's a passive gravitational device. It's not a pump, right?
No, it's a
So
dial.
all this would go away is on a pump.
Yeah. It says a controlled or a pump.
Yeah, so this is the option that's not electrostation.
Correct. And I think you have some that you've got in some your Pyxis at Bassett, which have fewer selection overall, which means that when you plug it into this chart, that you're talking a patient that, I'm talking a patient that weighs 70 kilograms and 90 kilograms would be receiving the same flow rate. So it's just not allowing, number one, there's the calculation problem. And number two, the ranges are huge based on what the numbers say on the
So
dial.
it's an antiquated way of describing the drip rate that is no longer allowed. Is that, like used to
You
kind
can
of
go
like-
by the chart. You can go by the chart. You set the dial flow to the chart rate. Although the chart has drips, when you do the conversion, it converts right over to the same exact thing. You're going to set for epi, you know, 5 mics. You're going to run it. It says 30 drips a minute. You set your dial flow to 30 cc's. It's still the same. There is no conversion.
But if there's no 30 cc on your dial flow,
Well, that's a problem.
that's a problem.
Yeah, well,
The problem we have is the dopamine one, because the numbers go so small, we have on the dial flow to go below,
Yeah.
that goes below,
below 20.
And
Yeah.
when you start looking at the data on the dial
We
flows
actually
as to how
got down
accurate
to
they
10
are,
on this
they're
one.
horrible devices in the first place, which is I think why most hospitals, I know Bassett, only use them for things like a slow infusion of a set amount in a bag, like an antibiotic or something like that, or fluid. And everything else goes on a pump.
And the reason why we decided to put them in the first place was because we realized that there was no agency in the world that was going to be able to go out and buy enough IV pumps. And for the low volume of use of some of this stuff, it just wasn't even worth it. So this was the best safety measure that we could take that would at least prevent a wide open infusion of the medication. We realize if you're, you know, 10 versus 20 versus 50, you know, over the course of an hour that you have the patient, is that really that clinically important? Probably not. At least it's preventing the wide open run.
Mhm. So, but that was one of the feedbacks that I got from people. I had another person that fed back, really like, we've had one use of the agitated patient excited delirium. And in bold letters, please keep this protocol, it worked well. I think you guys actually saw that PCR. Commented it was nice to be able to give 500 to 1,000 milliliter fluids boluses on standing orders instead of 250 repeated. And then the last comment was therapeutic hypothermia. Are the hospitals and the AAREMS actually supporting this? There have been multiple post-cardiac arrest patients taken to, she said, Bassett, with therapeutic hypothermia initiated and it's not continued. It's an excellent protocol to have and the evidence supports the use of it, but it does little good to initiate it in the field if it's not being supported by the hospitals that the patients are taken to.
Yeah, I mean, the ED devices, I think, are pretty good, but how the EDs are able to cool patients is not standard. It includes ice. So we're not necessarily more sophisticated than what squads are doing in the ED per se. If the patient survives that phase, the ICU has the more fancy cooling device with rectal probes on it. If you're talking about a hospital that doesn't have an ICU, then that's not really.
We've been doing bags of ice and it's been interesting because the thing, like for interfacility, when, say we get someone into O'Connor and then they're being transferred up to Bassett, O'Connor is managing it with bags of ice and you break a bag of ice and you think about a patient that's already arrested once and there's now water and you want to zap them again when you've got water all over. So.
Yeah, it's like the radio world, you know, once you get into the vendors that are trying to sell you their cooling device.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty expensive, pretty fast for something you're going to pull out. Maybe a couple
So we've
times
upped our
in
stock of ice packs, but yeah, that's about.
What are you guys doing? What are your hospitals? In the
We're just doing the children. Yeah, oh, in the ICU,
You got
they're not doing it. No, they're not
They're not doing it.
They're not doing any of it.
I know that was a concern at CMAC.
What about CMAC, Mark?
That was one of the concerns at CMAC during our discussions about this a while back, that the hospitals were not going to follow through and we're gonna have pre-hospital cooled patients in hospitals who are not capable or weren't gonna have enough cooling equipment to really follow through with it and keep the patient's temperature going down. Because there's only so far you can drop their temperature in the field.
So,
The problem we found in the ER is it's difficult to get them there, even with the cooling blankets, because there's so much that goes on in that initial phase.
Yeah.
Back and forth, the CT, X-rays coming in, really keep them under that blanket and get them cool to that point as fast as possible for the amount of time they spend.
Well, I think that's important information to get back to the CMAC is that there's an issue there. I think you're absolutely right. You know, things are going on and you can't really keep it consistently cool.
Why aren't the initial paramedics bypassing those facilities to go to a end care facility?
I don't know.
Because sometimes they're 45, 50,
But
longer out.
even still, if you're talking about going to a small facility that we've already said cannot do anything further than what's being done in the field, you're actually still saving the patient a ton of time, because if you stop at a hospital, now they've got to do what they can to stabilize the person and then get another hospital to accept them. So I would say bypass the facilities.
New York City, they have good numbers on this, but they have.
I think what we're up against is that the volunteers both for their closest facility, and then we're getting it from the community hospital.
Right, what I'm saying is tell the volunteers, tell the region to bypass it and go to the right place for the right patient.
Well, I think you're going to really expecting an awful lot from volunteers because they're so short right now.
I understand it, but you're talking about how many times you get an arrest reversal and it works.
well, it could be an ALS intercept, right?
I mean, it should be low frequency, and it's one that actually makes a difference.
But like Dr. Leinart said, there's lots of times you're not going to get an ALS intercept.
Right, if it's ALS, I would say drive past the hospital.
Yeah, I think the protocols, you know, it doesn't really matter, like STEMI is another example, right? Where the protocols enable the local hospital to be bypassed for STEMI, but there's a mandate that the local hospital be bypassed.
But a local hospital on a STEMI can still do something.
Well, maybe we don't add a lot, maybe add like heparin and some other things, in contact the receiving hospital, but so the protocols I see as enabling, but not, it's not, you know, we could recommend it, the protocol's kind of inferred by having that in the protocols actually is a sort of recommendation if you're within an hour of the PCI, or trauma center, or the stroke center, to do that. Cooling can be added to that list, or a cooled patient if they need to go to the PCI center. Requiring the transporting squad is something that we've never tried to do regionally or statewide.
Just have them contact medical control. I mean, if some,
You can't do that either, though.
We can't, once you contact us, direct you anywhere else.
I think the blanket is not the way to cool someone, because that causes peripheral constriction and actually increases your core temperature. So really you should be cooling the groin and the axilla, and not, a blanket's really not the way to cool someone initially.
That's the only thing we have.
But that's, you have ice packs.
Well, that too, but what I'm saying, we don't have
But when you use the blanket, what happens is everything closes down, so the outside stays cold, but the inside actually gets hotter because your circulation decreases. You stop circulating to your legs and your arms, and you have increased central circulation, so it stays warm. Whereas if you're cooling the big vessels in the groin and the axle, you actually cool things off better.
So you would suggest we don't use the cooling blanket
Yeah, I
at all?
don't think they suggest the blanket at all. I think
But
the
they did
blanket.
initially when we talked to them.
Wasn't there a concern there also, like you're talking about, after drop, like the same was with patients who were hypothermic to begin with, and you warm them up, and you get an after drop, and you get a drop in the temperature initially, or a rise in a drop in temperature in the extremities that goes into to the central system.
You get a rise initially, and as you start to dilate later, you can cool off. But
Right.
I think blankets do have use once you've
you're
achieved
down.
the temperature.
Yes.
Right.
And they have, the really sophisticated ones actually have the feedback between rectal temp and thermostatic control.
That's what ours says.
Yeah, I mean, that's good maintenance, because they gotta stay there for days.
Because you can actually call someone off. I'm amazed at how quickly we can get people called in the room. I'm just absolutely amazed.
Right, we do all three, you know, we do the saline, we do the ice packs, and then we've been using the cooling blanket. The incidents that we have are so small.
Just with the ice, no saline, no blanket, we pull people off relatively quickly. It's amazing.
Well, that's a question. How long do they have to stay cool?
Like 72 hours.
Really?
That's usually beyond the ED, hopefully, although.
You never know.
They'll so cold for the rest of their lives, right?
Hopefully, I think about 72 hours.
That's like a definite one.
But, any other comments about that? So Beth, if you can get those comments to Phil, we're not interested in positive feedback on the protocols. We don't want to embolden Remo in any way. You can ditch
Okay,
those.
so we got 2 and 2.
Get the negative comments to Phil and we'll circulate them back.
But as I said, we'd taken the time to get one of the CICs to convert it, so the
If you have
charts were.
suggestions about how it could be fixed,
And even on that chart, just adding in the milliliters per
do it-
hour,
do it in both
instead of
ways.
the drops per minute, milliliters per hour.
Do the
I'll show it to you.
translation. All right, any other REMAC business? Hearing none, move to adjourn.
Adjourned at 12:09. Luncheon is served.
Well, don't go dying.
There it is. I go right in.
I want to switch over.
That looks like a much better idea than that thing you had
Nobody comes.
Digital camcorder, USBs right into the
Know where Maple steam pump is? Let's turn on the hill there. You want to keep going, it's like Patterson.
Okay, folks, we'll get started. I hear the ghost of Howard speaking to me, so we'll start out with a roll call, please.
All righty. Delaware County, Mr. Early.
Present.
Is present.
Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Back.
Snowboard.
Not yet.
Lou Jones.
Yes, sir.
Pat Delameter.
Here.
Steve Hood.
Here.
Gold star for Delaware County. Fulton County, Bonnie Lumen is excused, not feeling well. Jack Farquhar.
Here.
Howard Hyman's excused, had to work. Don Coy.
Here.
Hamilton County, Sidney Dunham had to work. Joyce Malidi.
Here.
Phil Malidi, present. Gary Wicks is excused for medical reasons. Montgomery County, Tom Pasquarelli.
Here.
Mickey Schwartz.
Here.
Chris Green.
Here.
Garrett Gilston.
Here.
Another gold star from Montgomery County this time. Otsego County, Sid Chase.
Here.
Ryan Knapp.
Here.
Jane Putman. Here. Daniel Wygan, had to work, I guess. Huh? Okay. Harry County. Black cards are working. Nobody present. Mark Z.
I am here.
Okay, and Dr. Leinhardt is right outside, so I'm going to mark him present. I'm sure he'll be in. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum, sir.
Very good. Have to approve our minutes from last month's meeting. Everyone get a copy of the minutes? We need a second. Motion and second.
I'm sorry, who made the motion? Sid? Sid, okay. And second?
Second. Jack.
Jack?
Minutes have been, motions to approve and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Okay, we have some guests here today.
We do indeed. We have something about a uniform that makes them, you know, good for you. Howard Youth is present, and Deb Cuffs, and welcome. Phil Farrell and Mary Ramo are present. Tony Aggressor from the Amsterdam Fire Department. Good to have you, Tony. Bonnie Bergman and Beth McGowan from JVAC and CMT, respectively. And Dr. Markowitz, I don't know if he's still here or not.
Yes.
He's outside? Okay, Dr. Markowitz is here also. He was not able to make the REMAC meeting, but he's staying for this meeting apparently. He was at another meeting this morning, and that's why he couldn't make the REMAC meeting. We go through our lives meeting by meeting. Did I leave anybody out?
Rich Kirschman?
Rich Kirschman, well, he's our alternate.
Alternate from my
Member of the family. Member of the family. Rich, good to have you. Okey-doke.
Okay, welcome everyone. Correspondence, are we going to copy of correspondence? I do not have a report. We'll move right on to the Secretary's report.
Okay. I've received a letter from the Delaware County E.M.S. Advisory Board stating that their recent meeting, a quorum being present, they held a discussion on who should be the current county representative to our council. And after much discussion, motion made, seconded, and voted in the affirmative to continue Lou Jones and Mr. Early, continue Pat Delameter and renew her as appropriate, and to name Steve Hood as a voting member of the regional council, formerly ex officio, but there is no block in our bylaws from an ex officio member to becoming a voting member upon proper nomination, and to continue Dave Simmons as an alternate also. So I'd like to make a motion that these nominations and the decisions of the Delaware County E.M.S. Advisory Board be adopted.
Second.
Seconded by Brian Knapp.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained?
Steve, welcome. Welcome. With a slightly different hat. You can move your hat a little sideways. Yeah. There. On April 26th, we received word from the Department of Health that there would be no reduction in the amount of the program agency contractual allocations for 2012-2013. That's from July the 1st of this year through June 30th of 2013. There had been some talk, if you recall last month, there had been some talk at the state level of reducing our allocations by 10%. This despite the fact that we have not received any increment in them since 1994. So our thanks go out to Lee Burns and the E.M.S. Bureau staff for their work in achieving the goal. And by the way, I'm going to jump the gun with Mark did a wonderful report to note that Lee Burns is now officially the Director of the Bureau of Emergency Medical Services of the Department of Health. I consider that personally to be good news because Lee is truly has the E.M.S. at heart. It has been necessary to put the issuance of regional photo ID badges at the agency level, that is to say in any quantity for new folks, on hold for the present. One of our cameras that we use, that we have been using for photo ID badges is now obsolete. It's still working really well, but it's obsolete. You know, electronic stuff. It takes pictures on a 3.5-inch floppy disk. Daddy, what's a 3.5-inch floppy disk? Okay, enough said. Enough said. So in any event, we have to see about that. I can still issue renewal badges for those who are already in the digital database. In addition to the camera being obsolete, we have all new photo editing software, which I'm just now conquering the learning curve, it having conquered me for the last 60 days. I spoke with Andy Cuccinello, and he said that there's no backlog of badges to be issued at present. All those that have requested badges have had them issued. And Andy said there's really nobody hammering at the door to get new badges made on the agency level. More and more of the larger agencies, at least, are providing their own photo IDs for their members. In any event, we'll get back on track with this as soon as we are able to figure out a cost-effective and time-effective way of handling it.
Bill, why not just have the agencies send you a digital picture via email?
Of their people?
If they want to reprint it and mail it back to the card. For the local bum.
I know that some of our agency heads, who shall be nameless at this time, have a great and sometimes twisted sense of humor, so I'll take that under advisement. Yeah, Dave.
Is that a good idea to have agencies making their own ID cards?
Well, there's no law against it. There's no regulation at all at the state level against it. And there's no regulation for a region issuing photo IDs, except it says that they may. They may issue insignia and identification. Article 30, which happily is still unchanged, says that. It doesn't say that they shall, it says they may.
I'm just looking at the fact that you lose control of people.
Sometimes you do, but there are other ways in which we lose control also, because number one, the state no longer sends us printouts of who is certified in each county in our region. They stopped doing that for reasons of the budget. The state has never told us who is qualified as an instructor, as a teacher in our region. So we kind of have to do it by guess and by gosh, you know. There's no way we can mandate that that I'm aware of that the region is the sole issuer of photo IDs. On May 7th, we received word from Andy Johnson at the Department of Health. He took Karen Meganhoff's place as head of the education section. The the AAREMS course sponsor agreement is due for renewal by June 30th. The long form renewal is due, and they want an online submission. The whole thing is online. This is very interesting because you pick up the forms online, you fill them in online, but you can't save them online. You have to print them out and get the necessary signatures put on, then scan them back into your computer. That's also true of the new state controllers financial system. More about that in a moment. Anyway, the paperwork has been done and now needs approval of the council, so I'd like to make a motion that our course-sponsored renewal forms be sent in with approval of this council for the next 2-year period.
Second.
Second.
Tom. Oh, Tom. Oh, okay.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Okay, very good.
This allows us to continue offering our specialty courses as we have been right along. On May 11th, we received word that the EMS Bureau is moving from Troy to 875 Central Avenue, Albany. Phone numbers will remain the same. All REMSCOs and program agencies are requested not to send any mailings to the EMS Bureau between May the 14th and May the 25th. Currently, the May 17th exam paperwork may be forwarded, however, from around the state because the exam is tonight, statewide. And mailings to Mr. Farrell and Ms. Ramo are not affected by this request. Very urgently, they said, please don't, the central office said, please don't send us anything until the 25th of May, because we can't guarantee that it will get to us, even if it's sent certified mail. Just a point of information. On May 15th, we received word of the passing of the mother of Tim Mirabli, the Remo program director. I sent a letter to him expressing sympathy on behalf of all of us. On May 16th, Steve Sonder at the Department of Health advised the state warehouse had no PCRs left. He wanted to know how many we had. And whenever Steve calls me and asks me that, I tend to, I didn't know the true number in my mind, but I tend to lowball it a little because he's looking to see if he can borrow some from us. And that's what he was, looking to see if he could borrow some. I said, we don't have any to lend yet. He said, well, he said the approval process for the new printing contract is working its way through the state. You know that could be a little slow. I said, tell me about it. So in any event, just so you know, the state warehouse has no PCRs left. We have a reasonable inventory, and we can supply a reasonable number upon request. Notice of enforcement actions have been received from a gentleman in Belmore, New York, that's Long Island, Bayshore, New York, that's also Long Island, and Silver Springs, New York. I have no idea what Silver Springs, New York is. Anybody know? I have no idea. But in any event, this will be, we don't read all the details out, but it will be in the record, and as we're required to do. And that serves my report.
Thank you. Treasurer report.
All right, treasurer's report. No word from the city of Oneonta. On March 31st, on March 31st, we forwarded to Lisa DeLong of the Department of Health the quarterly council deliverables, together with a voucher in the amount of $89.15.20, reflecting expenses for the period from January 1st through March 31st. That was the end of the council contract year. On the same date, we forwarded program agency deliverables plus a voucher in the amount of $44,012.37, showing expenses for the same period. We began inquiries as to payment receipt on May 4th. The delay seems to be the new state financial system, the new voucher system break-in period at the Office of State Controller. On May 16th, after several emails and phone calls, we forwarded an email to Lisa with a copy to Lee Burns advising that the fund balances are depleted and prompt action was needed. Fund balances are getting lower. Lisa DeLong has advised us that the Office of the State Controller has established a new voucher system. Every agency, every vendor in the state, includes all the councils and program agencies, is required to plug into it and get a username and a password. Let me tell you, that is not a user-friendly website.
Well, let me tell you what Lee said. She said she heard some of her people in the office struggling with that, and there was a lot of shrieking and laughing.
I'm locked out of it.
What is it for?
How many times did you try?
What, they do a background
I got
check on
into
you?
it, it accepted the password, and then God knows what happened after that.
It took me about 6 passwords before I finally called the help desk. The help desk, he was guardedly friendly at the help desk. He probably had his ears. Yeah, he probably had a tympanic problem.
Lee said they're working on figuring out reimbursement for state council members, but she said there was a lot of shrieking and laughing. So.
A lot of shrieking, laughing?
Yeah.
In my office, you would have heard shrieking, not too much laughing.
Just a word of advice, Phil. Be sure to change your questions, because if you don't change the questions to remind you of your password, they will not send you a replacement password.
Well, I've got a password now.
But even though you have the password, you go into it, and it asks you for like 3 questions or something.
No, it's not asking me.
Just look for that, because if you have a problem with your password, you will be then locked out of it.
Is that right? No, they have not asked me any questions.
You can just use various.
I've asked them questions.
Well, I emailed them the broken password, and I got in trouble for emailing them a password, so.
I'd like to have Tom share what they
This is the voucher system?
This is the state financial system.
Well, I called the other day, they just faxed me a sheet, they said, they know there's a problem with the website, they faxed me a piece of paper, they said, send us in with your voucher. Print the voucher off and just send this piece of paper in.
That's great.
That's very professional. I admire that. I admire that approach. That's one step up from.
Do you realize somebody took the initiative to do that?
At the state level, you take the initiative. If you're not the governor, you're in trouble.
And by the time you mail it in, that person won't work there anymore.
Well, anyway, okay, so Lisa advised us about the SFS system, and I suppose you could make up any words to go with that. It would struck you. But now that's another voucher system. It's not called a voucher anymore. It's called claim notice. You fill it out online, but you can't save it. If you fill it out online, you have to print it out and then scan it into your own computer. You can't save it. Like the previous vouchers you were able to save, just take it and put them into your own file.
And we're all vendors now.
We're all vendors, yes. Yes, we're all vendors. God knows how many other vendors there are, but I think we're in a lot of companies. A printed report of the cash flow and balance sheet was distributed. Mr. Jones and Mr. Chase received a detailed cash flow balance sheet and register report. I await their report on it.
Everything will be in order.
And that, sir, is my report.
Need a motion to accept the treasurer's report? Need.
You sucked my battle.
Who made the motion? Oh, Jared, okay. Okay, who seconded?
Mickey.
Motion to made and seconded to accept the report as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstained?
Yes, I am as staff members.
Right along.
Okay.
Well, they got laughs here too.
We got we don't have any shrieks yet, but we got some laughs. Okay.
Community reports. Program agency.
Program agency with the new digital camcorder that we talked about. I acquired one, and you see it there working right now, recording our every activity. That was $189. That's all it was. It's a high definition digital camcorder, and it USBs right into your computer, right into your movie editor. So hopefully I'll be able to put the webcasting together very cost effectively and fairly quickly, with a little help from my IT guy. That's my request.
Very good. Transportation standards?
But we have training committee first.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't want to miss
sorry.
this.
I'm sorry.
I don't want to miss the training committee for the world.
Please excuse me.
You better.
Tell them not.
Training committee.
I don't excuse him at all. We have, I think, 13
13 signed up.
signed up, I guess, for the instructor update. That's low. We usually get like 30 or more. So at this point, it's we have 13. It's the 2nd of June. And it will be in Cobblestone with the Cobblestone Fire
We
Department.
now have 14.
We now have 14. It's not unusual to have last minutes for that either. The other thing that I just want to go over, and this is going to take a little bit of time, not a huge amount, but just to update you on the national education standards. This is interesting. Mark will agree. Did anybody else watch the webinar last night? Did you? Yeah, Andy's thing. There, you're going to see a change in the EMS training. Generally, what they're trying to do, the national, and New York State has adopted the national standards. So they're trying to have the EMTs and EMS personnel understand more theory behind their practice. As of last time, it was taken out. Now they put it back in. So anyway, you'll also see a lot of the stuff that was done prior to 1998 back in. It's very interesting. My comment first was I just revised all my stuff, and now I have to go back and re-revise it.
But
And
some of us
everybody's
would
gonna-
say it's about time that we thought about that.
I agree. They should never
have gone away.
10 years ago, they should never have changed it.
Phil probably has the 5.5 floppies when it was.
Yeah, we watched 5.5.
Anyway,
That was good.
one level is pretty much based on the other level. There'll be first responder level, which is emergency medical responder nationally. They're going to keep the CFR in New York. EMT, the B will be gone, so it'll be plain EMT. EMT has gone through so many reincarnations. Then there'll be an advanced AEMT level, the intermediate level, New York, but it will be updated to the national intermediate level. Critical care is still there, politically. I think it has to be at this point.
Well, operationally as well.
Yeah, that's true. Paramedic is, of course, still there. As far as skills, they've changed. Just very briefly, you'll be interested. CFR, they put BP back in. They put longboard backboarding in there. EMTs, Venturis are back in. I hope you saved your Venturi vest because they're there. Simple face mask, partial rebreathers. They're going to put a section on automatic transport ventilators, mechanical CPR devices. The nebulized beta agonists are going to be taught to all EMTs, and blood glucose monitoring apparently is still is going to be in also. For intermediates, this is the biggest change. They're going to remove needle chest decompression. How many knew that intermediates could do that anyway?
Yeah, right.
They put, or they are keeping capnography and end-tidal CO2. And nasogastric, NG and OG tubes are going to probably be removed. Who knew that? Intermediates, most of them could do anyway. MAST, interesting. MAST is still in because for pelvic stabilization, and it was very interesting. He said that there are studies showing that in some cases MAST really works for hyperperfusion, so you might see them coming back.
It's the 10-year mark.
So anyway, MAST is still in, and that'll be a regional thing whether they're used or not. For intermediate, nitrous oxide is going to be taught for all advanced levels. Nitrous oxide is going to be in the curriculum and be approved for use. I am happy. And for actually for the EMTs, I am epi and glucagon. intranasal Narcan, IV Narcan D50 and Epi, sub-Q Epi, and sublingual nitro. I think those are the meds that he mentioned. Don't take all of this because he was going sort of fast through some of this. IO for pediatrics and adults will be in the intermediate, and venous blood sampling will also remain in the curriculum. Critical care is remain as is. Paramedic, there's no major changes. They're putting chest tube monitoring and management in, not placement, but monitoring and management. Surgical crikes are in surgical now, including needle and surgical crikes are both going to be in the curriculum. Nitrous oxide, access to central lines and ports, and urinary catheterization for paramedics. The hours, interesting. Almost all of them are going to go up. The CFR is going to, Andy anticipates between 48 and 60 hours now. The EMT between 150 and 190. The average is now 135. AEMT, this is the intermediate level, between 150 and 250. No change in the CC and really no change in the paramedic also. That'll be between 1,000 and 1,300. The comment he made as far as the EMT, because of the whopping increase in EMT hours, is that colleges are going to have a real hard time putting them into a one semester course. They're also going to be, he talked about prerequisites. Nationally, they are the prerequisites for CFR are NIMS, ICS 100, and the HAZWOPER, the 24-hour HAZWOPER course. He said they'll probably leave the NIMS in. He doesn't know about the HAZWOPER. That'll be this for EMT. It's NIMS 700 and the HAZWOPER. Paramedic would be ICS 200. That's the single resource was one, and HAZWOPER. So they don't know what they're going to do with that, but they'll probably keep the NIMS in. They don't know about the HAZWOPER. Implementation. CFR and EMT starting with the 12-2012 testing. That'll be this December. Paramedic and the AEMT starting with the August 2013 testing. All CFRs and providers are going to be required to meet the new standards by June 1, 2014. I don't understand what is going to happen if you take the test tonight. You've got 3 years to 2015.
Right.
I don't know what they're going to do as far as that, but he made the statement that all CFRs and EMT providers must meet the new standards by June 1, 2014. And the CME course curriculum is going to change. I think what they're going to change is probably change and the EMT level. They'll probably increase the core content hours, decrease the CME hours, but that's just a guess on my part. And that will change starting this year, December 2012, he said. So I don't know exactly what change that's going to be. They'll probably keep the same number of hours, but just rearrange them. There's no curriculum. The onus is on the instructors with this. There's really no curriculum. They have to teach from the standards and the guidelines and the protocols, but
so long as the objectives are met.
As long as the objectives are met, the instructors can set whatever hours they want for their course. And he also mentioned there's a huge variation in textbooks, the level of the reading level and so forth. So it really going to take a lot of investigation into what textbooks you think are most
well, and they want instructors to be called and considered educators.
Right. Right. That we're going from instruction to education.
Before I left the office, there was an email that anybody who missed the webinar can catch it. I guess they're replaying it or
he was going to try
making access to it.
On the website?
But no, I got an email from.
Here's a specific link to it.
So I probably put a link into it, but I was leaving to come here, so I didn't look.
He was gonna try to record it last night and then have it available, so I presume if he probably was able to do that. If you are an instructor, I would urge you to look at that. And it was almost 2 hours. By the time, they said it was gonna be an hour, but I think it was almost 2 hours.
Kathy Johnson made a presentation about training changes.
So there you are.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay.
Lou.
Yes.
I just have a question for Joyce.
Joyce?
With the lack of CICs and CLIs in the area, and especially for this region, would it be possible to put together a CIC class and reach out to Mountain Lakes and Remo to see if we can get a class up and running?
Well, we can try.
Mountain Lakes and Remo already have classes tentatively scheduled.
And they didn't make it, right?
No, upcoming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mountain Lakes is gonna coincide theirs as of now with their conference that they have in September up on Lake Placid, and Remo is planning one tentatively in the fall also.
So I would say go there because I can guarantee that we're not gonna be able to get one.
They haven't been
together for our
officially
region.
scheduled or approved yet, that's why no one's seen notice.
Rochester does a lot of them pretty regularly also.
I've been looking online, the closest one I can find is New York City. So.
Rochester just had one, so I'm not sure where you're looking.
That's a great facility in Rochester.
Yeah.
There was a note, he mentioned that the National Association of E.M.S. Educators has a CIC course that New York State is going to now allow their CLIs to go to that course, but that's not given very frequently, and it's given all over the country. So, but
is there a state website that lists those classes that are available, CSEs and CLI?
if we know of them, we list them on our website.
The easiest place to do it is check the region's websites.
Yeah.
That would be a really good addition to the department's website.
Yes, it would,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
I'll make a note of that.
Yes. Go and do that, Mark, would you please?
I shall. I'll attend to it right away.
Lou, just one
We
quick-
have a link to all the councils, and the councils are charged with promoting education within the region.
Just one quick thing too under training. As far as Cobleskill for the fall, we've still got spots available. Somehow it kind of got out there that we were full.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying here. So spread it out. I mean, we've got a lot more people than I thought we were gonna at this point. We're actually even now toying with the idea of adding a second section for the fall because we've got that many people, but we've still got tons of room and we're still interviewing people. So if you got people, just let us know. We're right at that cusp point where we're gonna cap our class at 30. If we can make it to 45, then financially I can afford to put a second section on and split it out. If we land somewhere in between like 35 and 45, it probably isn't going to fly. But right now we've absolutely got room, so if you know people, let them know. We are still offering advanced standing for CCs also, so.
That's another thing with this, what Andy was talking about last. Apparently the way the curriculum, there is no curriculum. The way the courses are set up, there's going to, one is going to build on another one. And he mentioned the word bridge last night, the possibility of, so.
Freestanding? Really?
That's what he said.
Okay.
He said, he mentioned it, you remember that? It was right in the beginning. He didn't say it was going to go, but he said that there was a possibility of.
Haven't heard that.
Additional education, etc. I made an interesting observation that at one point during this, you remember Rochester had this program where they tried to take patients to alternate destinations, doctor's offices or clinics or something, rather than taking them to hospital EDs. And one of the problems that came out of that study, it was not a successful study, except there was a lot of sort of information about what you needed to do to make it successful. And one of them was that the paramedics really didn't like doing that. And I said, well, that sort of makes sense. I mean, there's really not enough juice in taking somebody to a doctor's office. I mean, there's no juicy trauma or, you know, slick cardiac issues or, you know. So I don't know how many paramedics are really going to be interested in doing that, except that it's a way to provide more care to more people at less expense, and it sort of makes sense conceptually. And I'm sure there would be a portion of the paramedic population who would be interested in doing this, but overall, I have to wonder. I mean, it really takes a little change in mindset to know that not only are you got to be good at all this emergency stuff, which is fun, and all this community paramedicine stuff, which is interesting and I think has its own rewards, and just getting people to, that's one of the things I think you'd have to concentrate on when you set this program up, is as part of the education phase, is to create the enthusiasm to do that, as well as what we think of as the fun stuff and that we tell stories about. That's the end of my report.
I just have a question. On the legislative portion, number 2,
Yeah.
the removal of the 2-year exemption, with the vote that you guys had in opposing that, was there any discussion on that, to why you guys felt so strongly about that?
Well, because it would essentially create 2 different classes of providers. One class of providers that would actually not have much oversight or regulations, and another class of providers that has to go through the entire CON process and be vetted, and municipalities would not be. That was I think, the major issue.
So they wouldn't have to actually pay the money for the certificate still?
Oh, I don't know. That wasn't even discussed. This was a bill that was put in by Senator Little from the North Country, primarily because I think it was Saranac Lake is part of her district, and they were whining because they had so many tourists in the summertime or the wintertime or something, and they had to provide service, and they really needed to be able to bill for that and get some reimbursement. Not that there aren't other towns upstate New York, Cooperstown being one, that has extra population during certain parts of the year that they have to take care of. So, I don't know. But that was the primary situation, is that everybody needs to play by the same rules, is I think pretty much what the feeling was.
Okay, thank you.
I did not attend the regional program director's meeting since Joyce and I were out of town that week.
Any other program updates?
Nothing else to report, sir.
REMAC approved application from Gloversville to operate as a BLS, first responder unit. Application from Corbridge for EMT albuterol and glucometer testing. We had a discussion about narrow banding and its implications within hospitals and ambulance services. We clarified the regional recognition of paramedics in critical care in the roles of ALS intercept and specialty care transports, and we received some protocol recommendations and commendations that will be forwarded as this protocol revision is considered. And that's
Okay, thank you. County reports. Let's go to Delaware.
Not much to report. Have a basic EMT class scheduled to start in June in Sydney, which will apparently be tested on the new scope of new education standards. And there's already 25 people signed up for that class. Unfortunately, most of them are from outside the county. That's what happens when you place it on the border.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Artigo?
Artigo hosted Mike McAvoy, first time ever, I think, last Saturday. He gave us a really interesting presentation on the use of cyanide kits. That's the first time I've been privileged to hear him speak in person. We'd highly recommend him to anybody else who asks him to come and do a presentation. He's very entertaining, as you know from everything you read that he writes, but he's also equally a very top-notch educator in person. That's it for us.
Mr. Harry?
Nobody here from Sierra.
Montgomery?
Nothing really at the county level. The only thing I'd like to comment is we had John Politis come in and do that supervisor boot camp. We put 12 hard people through it. It was a couple of days. A lot of great information. John did a great job with the course. If anyone has the opportunity to jump in one of those classes, he's doing them throughout the entire country. And I know his schedule is full, but a lot of interesting material and resources that he provided for both our supervisory staff and people that have the ability to become supervisors in the future, who we ran through it.
Fish. He does the lot with the fish philosophy, which is really cool.
Yeah, the fish was part of it.
Yeah, he's doing 2 presentations at the Onion Conference in early June.
Fulton?
Nothing new.
Hamilton?
In Gary's absence, nothing new. We have a CFR class that tests tonight.
Yeah, whopping 6 people.
6 people. The old standards, not the new standards, the old standards.
Okay, old business?
Yes, we did receive 1 award nomination. We received 1 award nomination. Since he's not here, I'll mention it. Howard Hughes was nominated for an award. And I believe that the drill is that we have to approve that nomination and pass it on to Luca's signature and then we forward it to the state. I believe that's how it goes.
I think other years it went to the nominating committee and they reviewed it and
right. That's what it did.
Reviewed the nomination.
Okay, yeah. Who was on our, I know
Howard was
the committee?
the chairman, and
Yeah.
I don't know, there was, you were on, weren't you, Jeff?
Yeah.
Were you
Was
on?
I?
I thought
On
Howard
that
did.
committee?
Was it?
I thought you were.
Yeah, I thought so too. Well, if you don't know, I don't.
I'll do it then.
Okay, we have to get, excuse me, we have to get that into the state before the 1st of June.
You'd mail it till the 25th.
25th, you're right. Perfectly right, sir. Right here, hang on a second.
They usually do.
He's being nominated for the Harry C. Weber EMS Leadership Award.
Now, other years, basically the nominating committee was just charged with reviewing and approving the nominations and sorting out if there's more than one in each in a category.
This is the only one received, and
So-
I suspicion that we're not going to be receiving any others.
Do we need a motion
Just a motion to approve.
to approve that the nominating committee reviews and approves whatever applications come in, or nominations come in? And forwards it to the state, yes, sir.
I'll put that in the form of a motion.
I did.
Okay. Wait a second.
Second. Who's that from? Whoever you are, Jeff, okay. Jesse?
Okay, all those in
Cameron can
favor?
say what he
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Yep. New business? Have any new business? Need to appoint a nominating committee for the election of officers next month. Any volunteers?
Do your duty, sir.
Well, I think sometimes that Sid volunteers a lot for that.
I do remember that Sid often volunteers for us.
Yeah. Sid?
I've been on that committee a number of times.
Jack, will you come up? Well, you, Jack. Sid and two Jacks help him out?
Two Jacks is not a good hand.
It's not a winning.
Sure, we usually just do a
Not a winning hand, but they're
Don't we, Jack?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so it'll be Sid, Tom, and Jack Early. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Any other business?
That's it for me, sir.
Lou, the only thing I just want to note that is that for the awards committee, we usually, if we have had one person from each county
Yeah.
traditionally, so
Yeah.
I don't know what you want to do with that.
Yeah, we haven't, I think this is the only thing we've received. Right?
This is it, this is it.
No, I meant, we had, on the committee,
Right.
one person from
On the committee,
Yeah.
each county.
Okay.
No, that's a good point, man.
Yeah. Okay, if there's no other new business, need a motion to adjourn?
So made.
The next meeting on the 21st of June, right here.